What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. We seriously need to talk about this restraining order that Jenelle Evans was granted against her soon-to-be ex-husband, David Eason, allegedly soon-to-be ex-husband anyway, in which she claims that he once locked her son Kaiser in a running car. E! News broke the news earlier this week about the temporary order of protection that she was given on behalf of herself and all three of her kids. That's Jace, Kaiser, and Enslie as well. Enslie is the only child that she does share with David, so I'm really surprised to see that it was issued for her. In her filing for the order, Jenelle claimed that David had been threatening her for a while, but that they started escalating over the past couple of days. She said, and I quote, "Because of his recent threats, his history of violence, his erratic behavior, and his large stockpile of weapons, I'm scared for my life and my children's well-being." She alleges that over the past 2 years, there have been 11 incidences of either physical or verbal abuse. Remember, in a 911 call that was released, she was in the attic claiming that David had kicked down a door and damaged it in a fit of drunken rage or something like that. There was a call about the collarbone where she claimed that her husband broke her collarbone. There were videos that were released on Twitter where David called her a piece of shit, the biggest piece of shit he's ever seen, and that he didn't care whether she was dead or alive. These things are on video, so there's no denying it. And of course, the most infamous thing of all was when David shot her dog dead for no reason whatsoever. We had already known about all of those other things over the years. We've seen them come out in the press, but the most shocking was when she had mentioned that David had allegedly locked her son Kaiser in the running car and just kept locking it with her spare key. Remember, Kaiser is 5 years old, and so a running car with a child, a 5-year-old locked in it, or anybody in general, is very dangerous. First of all, is this a case of him trying to have Kaiser suffer or die from CO2 poisoning? That was the first thing that ran through my mind when I saw that. I was like, what's going on? What? Was it in a locked garage? And Kaiser also could have panicked and tried to play around with the gear shift and put the car in drive or reverse or something like that, and really had a very serious accident that again could have killed him. Another new development from the restraining order that she was granted against David, she claims that David sent her a text message about her having a new boyfriend. He's like, "Oh, I know you've got a new boyfriend. I'm going to break his jaw and feed you his head," via text message. And he allegedly followed it up by saying, "My goal in life is to make sure you regret leaving me like this." She told the courts that she responded by telling David to stop sending her threatening text messages and by telling him that Enslie was going to be staying with her. The document read, and I quote, "Given his actions and knowing his temperament, I believe he was implying that he would kill himself if I do not come back to him. For all of these reasons, I'm afraid that David will harm me or my children and that he will continue to threaten me using text messages, phone calls, or on the internet." So the order that was granted to Jenelle gives her temporary custody of Enslie for the time being. It also says that David is not allowed to contact her or the children, and he's not allowed to post about Jenelle on social media whatsoever. And she also requested that he pays for the attorney fees as the case continues. And I'm wondering with what money, because I'm pretty sure that most attorneys do not accept monopoly money. In her filing for the temporary order of protection, Jenelle did confirm that she was in fact currently living in Tennessee. And I wonder how that affects Kaiser, being in school right now and her visitation with her nephew Jace as well. Let's get into something that's really weird about all of this. Let's kind of back it up for a second. Remember, Jenelle filed for this order of protection on October 31st, and she got it pretty quickly. I believe it was an emergency order of protection. So the turnaround time for those is 1 or 2 days, 3 days maybe. So David had already known that this order of protection was in place, I guarantee you, probably by at least November 3rd, which makes it quite wild that he would go ahead on the internet talking about Jenelle, knowing that he's not supposed to be talking about Jenelle on the internet on November 5th. So first of all, he called her dumb when someone was like, "Jenelle finally wised up and left you." He's like, "No, she's still dumb." But he also went ahead and said, "So since Jenelle has disappeared and I have no contact with her or Enslie, I have no option but to file a missing persons report." Sir, why are you filing a missing persons report? First of all, why are you broadcasting this girl on social media, which is against the protection order she has, against you? but why are you filing a missing persons report when you have already been notified, presumably, that you're not to have contact with this woman or this child? Like, there's no purpose for you filing a missing persons report, because these people are legally missing from your life because you're an abusive POS. I really wonder what happened when he filed that order, very clearly knowing what was going on with the situation and just wasting, the court's resources. Like, I'm really curious to follow this and see what ends up happening. Another thing I'm wondering is why we have not seen like a physical copy of this document. Just because like typically you do see these documents when they are filed, like Radar Online or a TMZ or someone like typically watermarks the hell out of it. For example, when Macy got a restraining order against Ryan, the document was released. I'm showing you a photograph that Starcasm put together, but like behind it you see the filing for this restraining order. So again, I'm a little bit curious about how all of these filings that Jenelle and David are making are not being released to the public when typically that is the case, right? Like legal separation, she claimed to file the paperwork. We still haven't seen it, and it's been at least a week at this point. This restraining order, we haven't seen any documents about it. So like these things are kind of just like making me a little about the whole entire situation. But I do have to admit, like, all of this is starting to look a little real, though I'm still awaiting some receipts. Anyway, you guys, that's enough about what I have to say about the whole thing. As usual, I'm more looking forward to what you have to say about everything. Were you shocked to hear about David allegedly locking Kaiser in a running car? Do you think he was trying to CO2 poison Kaiser? Or do you think that he was hoping Kaiser would play around with a gear shift and accidentally hit drive, reverse, or something like that? Like, the whole thing is absolutely insane. And what about him accusing Jenelle of having a new boyfriend and texting her that he would break the guy's jaw and feed her his head? Like, what goes through this guy's mind? Leave all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.